The Dutch Blockchain Conference is an incubator of new plans and of new ideas.
I think coming along to the third Dutch Blockchain Conference is very eye-opening to me, because the conference this year is maybe more than 3 times the size it was last year.
I think we've been talking about this for 1.5 years or so, and now it's the big day, and it's great to see that everything is running so smoothly.
You are people who strongly believe the best is yet to come for our country. And that is why I have already called for a coalition on blockchain in the Netherlands, in which ministries, supervisors, entrepreneurs work shoulder to shoulder, so to say, to create the right environment.
Now also had the Dutch government on stage with their 16 proof of concept pilots. I mean, you know, I think it's really important for the government to actually be a stimulator of innovation here, because if they create a few blockchains that other parties can actually leverage on to build businesses, you know, that's just the way to go.
We're very excited to have Gavin Wood here. He's the co-founder of Ethereum, and he's currently running ETH4. He will talk about, of course, what the whole thing from Ethereum will be and what his company does, but hopefully he will also talk about the latest crisis, which proves that this whole world will become a lot more grown up. Give him a big hand, Gavin Wood, and thank you very much for coming.
I'm going to try and explain what Ethereum is without using too much technical language. So roughly speaking, it's this. You probably don't really need to understand those words to understand what it is. It's actually one of these. It's a computer, okay? So this is a computer from quite a long time ago, from the 50s. So the first, probably most interesting feature is the fact that there's actually only one of them. So from the entire world, there's only one Ethereum computer. It's the same computer, everybody uses it. And the programs that run on it can all kind of interact with each other, as though they were running on the same computer. And that's kind of a new thing. So it's very difficult to shut it down or corrupt it or break it. Very difficult. Not impossible, but very difficult.
So if you look at blockchain technology, it's a global system and it's instant clearing all around the world at a fraction of the cost of the existing economy. And what are the cool things that you can do with it? Well, ultimately, the interoperability that blockchain provides is that I could have my entire financial and legal life with in one platform and use it in a single click of a button. Do anything, right? Change my phone subscription from one subscriber to another one with a single click. Change any asset for another asset, and all of those things are going to be possible with one supplier with a single click, giving permission to that supplier. Which before that would be you going to every single supplier, doing your KYC, giving your identity and signing up, a very tedious process, which is all going to be converged.
What we now see is that there's a lot of focus on just on fintech, or just even more precise, I think, on a lot of in the payment and in the lending space. But potentially, blockchain can actually change and really revolutionize the whole infrastructure around a lot of markets, actually in any supply and demand market.
With the help of blockchain, I believe we have a unique opportunity to take a big leap forward. I dare you and the decision makers in The Hague to take that leap with us.
Mr. Eenhoorn, you think about what could governments do with blockchain? Tell me.
Well, for everything we do, transactions for instance, we need a third party, a trusted third party. And blockchain makes it possible that people and the government are exchanging a lot of things, identity for instance, but also sort of transactions in health, or transactions like fintech transactions between governments and businesses and people.
So really, why is the business interested in blockchain? And I'd say this is the first time I've worked in a piece of technology where I've got CEOs, CFOs, as well as the architecture and the engineering teams interested in this. And why is that? And the reason is, it's a little bit of a Goldilocks technology. It gives you this idea of I can have cost savings and benefits, but at the same breath, I can drive an innovation agenda across some of my long-running business processes that have been resistant to change for decades. I believe if you look at its capability, with all the things we're seeing, it is a transformative, piece of technology that's. And the thing is, it's so many industries. If it was just financial services market, I'm not sure it was just focused on that. Yes, it'd be important. But it's a fact, you can start looking at it for managing digital health records. You can start seeing it looked in taxation and government, between government departments. You can start seeing it in the pharmaceutical industry, the supply chain, the automotive, the aerospace. We haven't hit an industry yet that says, no, this has got no interest to me.
Personally, I think if you look at healthcare, there must be a huge opportunity in getting that further streamlined. But the same goes for a lot of governmental tasks. And if we could all benefit that, for instance, the land registry, together with our mortgages and notaries, etc., if we could create something that would speed up the whole process and make it indeed easier for a customer to get a mortgage and to do that within a full week, and everything, I don't know, and not just the offer. No, but get everything done at the same time with a few clicks, if you see the amount of paperwork there. But that's what we're trying to do, engage some people from outside as well in this journey. We actually from the start combined our techies, who were, by the way, far ahead of the game in terms of thinking what blockchain actually is and can do, etc. They were talking about this and they were actually doing stuff when our business people were still thinking about fintech is something new, and these guys were already working on that experience. But from the start, we combine our business people with the techies, and you can, by the way, debate whether our business people should become techies a bit more.
Working with ING, I thought they were really, big and dinosaurish. But actually the opposite was true, and the people that I meet around here are really intelligent when it comes to seeking problem solution fits to basically the solutions that my kind of people build.
Thank you for the introduction. Thank you very much for having me. Hi everyone, and my name is Masha, and I will present Ascribe.io to you, an application built on top of blockchain to address very specific issues in the digital art world. And the problem that Ascribe is addressing can be basically summarized in one question. How do you own something when bits can be copied freely?
Ascribe.io was created to help digital creators of digital content to timestamp their claim of authorship, create unique digital editions, and transfer usage rights.
What about putting digital identities on the blockchain? That's an interesting idea, because remember the key problem that I alluded to. If this is a good model of identity, if digital identity is essentially a key pair at its heart, then the problem of looking after that private key becomes the key digital identity problem. Well, I was here talking about identity because, that's one of the big problems. Like when you talk about doing more business on the blockchain or storing things on the blockchain, doing transactions on the blockchain, you get 5 minutes into the conversation before somebody starts talking about identity. Nobody liked my idea, but my idea was I can take my private key, I can convert it to a QR code, like you saw this morning, and then I can have it tattooed onto my scrotum. And I thought that would be a very effective way of managing the private key and making sure that it was, largely private, right? Like if you wanted to know who I am right now, I could show you my British passport. Well, how would you know whether that's a real British passport or not? You've got no conceivable way of knowing whether that passport is real, unless you're some anti-terrorist genius that I don't know about. And you've no idea whether that passport is still valid or not. How do you know it's not been revoked or lost or stolen or whatever? So like I show you my passport, but that's not real security. It's a sort of pretend security. And we want to get away from that. So we don't have any more who are you questions in the authorization domain. We have the what can you do questions. Are you allowed to access this bank account? Can you open this door? Can you drive this car? We don't ask who are you. We get that out of the authorization domain. We don't want to use your identity in transactions wherever possible.
The blockchain technology might potentially add a new dimension to the interaction between the supervisor and the supervised institutions. If they share a blockchain, the supervisor can automatically see all verified transactions. That would simplify life a lot, I would think. And what we do is to study this blockchain technology by first adapting the prototype Bitcoin software ourselves. Because the idea is that when you do it yourself, you learn at a much deeper level than if you would do desk research or talk to other people. We do also that, of course, but on top of that, we also experiment ourselves. So we built our own variant of the Bitcoin called the DNB coin. And just to avoid misunderstandings, DNB coin is only developed for internal test purposes. It will not be put into circulation. Sorry for that.
If you look at trade finance, which is a very interesting field for blockchain technology, because it's complex and international and you need trusted information. If you look to the Port of Rotterdam, we are not seeking the cooperation in the terms of Port of Rotterdam being a client of the bank, but as a logistical partner in the chain. Before a blockchain, you see an ecosystem, and what you see on this picture is a lot of steps. And also per step, a lot of documents. So you see an exporter, you see an importer, a bank of the exporter, a bank of the importer, the customs. If you go to blockchain, you have still exactly the same parties there, but one thing changed, and that's in the circle. And that's where the shared ledger is, and where you have shared information about where the goods are, what the status of the goods are. So what you make easier is the flow of information through the blockchain.
So for us, the challenge is not necessarily collecting the data, but it's much more kind of the sharing the data amongst this supply chain. We very much believe that you don't make the difference on the infrastructure. You make the difference on the services on this infrastructure.
If I would put my money in bitcoins instead of euros, what would be my advantage?
I think it's your Bitcoin. If you have digital euros, you have it somewhere else. You have it at the bank.
Yeah, okay.
With bitcoins, they are yours. If you screw it up, your bitcoins are gone. If you don't, they are yours and no one can touch them.
How big is this going to be? What do you think? Your prediction for this year and next year?
Okay, it's going to be big, and I don't know if it's this year or next year.
There is a need for a global ledger. And right now there are still only two contenders, which is Ethereum and Bitcoin. And that's where I think it's heading. It's looking at use cases that have a global impact and where interoperability is key.
Now there's a problem with Ethereum. Somehow $50 or $60 million disappeared, right? What happened?
So, there are a few things to explain about this. The first thing is that the problem isn't with Ethereum itself, but the problem is with one of these applications, with one of these smart contracts. So the smart contracts are not built into Ethereum. Ethereum exists sort of on a lower level. And these software run on the higher level. So it's like saying, well, this website's broken, and it's not saying the same thing as the internet's broken.
Right.
So Ethereum's like the internet. It just sort of works. But yes, one of the websites, as it were, that sits on Ethereum broke. This website was called the DAO. Okay. Now the DAO was envisioned as some sort of mechanism so that people could pay in Ether, and this Ether could be used to sponsor projects, and if the projects ended up becoming profitable, people would be able to make some of those profits back. And what happened was, due to a technical flaw in the DAO, in this piece of software, in this website that sits on top of Ethereum, someone was able to attack it and to drain about a third of the money that the DAO had managed to collect into a child DAO, so into a kind of an offspring of the same sort of thing, but an offspring. Now, the reality is that the money is still sitting there, so we know precisely where it is. We can see it in the system. There's a balance. It's big. It's bigger than it should be.
But there's a different owner.
But there's a different owner. So what do? Well, this is an interesting problem. We got three choices, basically. We do nothing. And when I say we, I don't mean, we, some elite people who are just like controlling everything. I mean the Ethereum and the DAO community. We enact a soft fork, which would basically be a very, very kind of easy, simple, low-risk way of altering the network protocol slightly, just sort of nudging it into a direction in order to freeze that 14% of funds. Or we hard fork, and that's a much more significant undertaking. It would actually alter the protocol in a significant way. But if we did that, we could potentially, well, we could, I'm pretty sure, definitely, basically return all of the Ether in this DAO and in the stolen DAO and all that. We could return it back to the original holders and basically go, That was a close one.
This is an important case, right?
I think it's probably the most important
Yeah.
case in crypto economics since the birth of Bitcoin. Yes.
You think it will survive the problems it has right now?
I think these problems will eventually be I hope there'll be a very clear lesson.
This is like an immune system response, one way or another. So yeah, we're gonna go into a fever for a while, but when we come out of the fever, we're gonna know for sure that this is what you don't do if you want to make a system.
This is
that
a very good $160 million lesson.
Are the banks happy with you?
Well, at the moment they're not realizing what we're doing.
Really?
I don't think so. If I look at the event that happened I just recently, and look at the talks that were given, I think they're just still researching the whole idea.
You're doing what they are researching.
Yes.
Yeah, and you're putting them out of business eventually.
Eventually, I hope. Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
And how do you think what you are doing will change our society? The way we live, the way we work, the way we buy.
Yeah, that's really hard to predict, and it's really going to take 10, 20 years until we fully realize what's going to happen. And that's what I like about Bitcoin, and what I like about our own transaction systems, which is based on Bitcoin. We don't know what people want, but we just put it out there, and people can develop their own stuff on top of it.
I think truly for these more collaborative organizations where anyone can contribute, you need this distributed ledger so that there's an organization that we're in conversations with called RLoop. Just to run you through this quick, they're part of the Hyperloop project, competing, and they made it to the very final stage of Elon Musk's SpaceX's Hyperloop project.
Yeah.
Entirely formed through a Reddit thread. There's anywhere from 150 to 450 people contributing to this, and they're largely using Slack and Trello. They have no clue who's doing anything, and more, now that they've crowdsourced some money, there's a whole lot of trust going on that hopefully the person who's responsible for the money is doing what they're saying they're doing. And what they're looking to have is a more open way to actually see and allow this open organizational model, but to be able to trust the people involved by not needing to trust them.
Yeah, it's much more than technology.
It is.
It's a social thing too. What do you think will happen to our society when blockchain is coming up to speed?
Well, I think that's long term, but I think it does present a very fascinating view of what could happen in the future. The final presentation here was about how companies have evolved from the 16 to 1800s and 1800 to 2000s. Right? We're now still in the age of the large companies. I think it's much more going to be about a collaborative society going forward, which is going to give more people a chance to actually participate in the economy at larger scale.
How?
Because everybody can be a value-creating unit on the internet, right?
Mark Buitenhek, this is the third conference, first at ABM, then at your place, now at KPMG. What did you think of this conference, version 3.0?
Well, first of all, it's the first blockchain conference, right? The last two times been Bitcoin. So I guess you're broadening your scope, and that's exactly what's happening, right? First it was focused on banking, now it's the medical world, art. And one of the great things of this conference, I thought actually was the performance of Ethereum. Standing here in such dire straits and such difficult circumstances, I really appreciated that he was here and that he sincerely was looking for answers, right?
I think he's a hero, yes.
And why is that?
Because he's so honest at stage and searching for an answer. I really love that. Instead of a promotional talk, he was really honest, vulnerable.
Last year was a great event, and it was very much like, well, let's see what we can do with the blockchain. And this event is all around, there are things we can do, and how are we going to do them? So I think it's fantastic progress in a year's time, and I am tired, but also delighted because I got new energy.
I think it's nice to see that the conference breaks out of its own size. In the Dutch we say dat het uit zijn voegen breekt.
Gefeliciteerd, wat een mooie dag. Hou maar op.
Ja, het is genoeg, hè?